We begin at the Mishnah on Daf Lamedal Damad Aleph, the Mishnah, the last Mishnah of the Perek, where it says Ra Sakai. Zok Teilige Mishnah. Ra es Sakai, a person sees a kai. So as we'll see in the Mishnah here, a kai is an animal or maybe a wild beast. There's an argument what the status of this kai is. There's an opinion that says that it's a chaya, a wild beast. There's an opinion that says that it's a behema, a domesticated animal. And there's an opinion that says that there's a suffix. It can be either or maybe it could be both. And the Rishonim here, most Rishonim, the Taisus and the Rosh says that this Mishnah is following the opinion that koi is a suffix what it is. Okay, so now this individual over here sees a koi, and Va'amar he says, Hareini Nazir shezachaya. I will be a Nazir because this koi is a chaya. Now, if it's a chaya, there's certain halachas that applies only to a chaya and not a behemah. A chaya, when you shecht it, so there's a halach of kisi adam, you have to cover the blood. That does not apply if it's a behemah. Another person came and said, Hareini Nazir shezeh ein chaya. I'll be a Nazir if this is not a chaya. In other words, it's a behemah. Now, if it's a behemah, as I said, there's no kisi adam, but on the other hand, there is the isser of chaylev that applies, a certain forbidden fats, which is an isser that only applies to a behemah and not to a chaya. A third person comes and says, Hareini Nazir shezeh behemah. I am a Nazir that this is a behemah. Basically the same thing that the second guy just said, he's just saying it in the positive. A fourth person comes and says, Hareini Nazir she'ein zeh behemah. Like the first person said, I'm a Nazir that this is not a behemah, it's a chaya. And now a fifth person comes and says, Hareini Nazir shezeh chaya u behemah. I'm a Nazir because this is both, it has an aspect of a chaya and it's a chaya and a behemah. And a fifth person comes and says, Hareini Nazir she'ein zeh loy chaya v'loy behemah. I am a Nazir that this is not a chaya and not a behemah. Okay, I just said the fifth. I think this was the sixth person that said this, that I'm a Nazir because this is not a chaya and not a behemah. So as the Rishonim say, the relevance of the fact that the kai is not a chaya and not a behemah is regarding the isser of harba. It can't be cohabited with any chaya or behemah because it's a barrier for itself. It's not a chaya or a behemah. Now, someone else came and said, a seventh person, Hareini Nazir she'echad mikem Nazir. I'll be a Nazir if one of you are right and is a Nazir. Another person, an eighth person came and said, Hareini Nazir she'ein echad mikem Nazir. I'll be a Nazir if one of you are not right, which is in essence the same thing as the previous person. One of you is not right, but someone else is right. Hareini Nazir, the last person there, the ninth person said, I'm a Nazir shel kulchem nazirim. If all of you are a Nazir. Harei kula nazirin. So the halacha here is, the Mishnah says, all of these will be a Nazir. So what's the pshat? How could all of them be a Nazir? So we had earlier here in this perek a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, whether in a situation where a person says with confidence that he was going to be a Nazir because so and so is the fact. So Beis Shammai says, even if you made a mistake, doesn't matter. A Naziris with a toss is a Naziris. So according to Beis Shammai, we could certainly understand what the Mishnah says, that even though one of them may have made a mistake over here, but he's a Nazir bevadai, because it doesn't matter if he made a mistake. He thought he's right, and therefore his Naziris takes effect. Now, Beis Hillel says that if you made a mistake with what you said in your Naziris, you're not a Nazir. But nevertheless, even according to Beis Hillel, over here, each one of them will be a suffix Nazir, because it's possible, each one of these, it's possible that he's right. As I said, we're going here according to the opinion, which is Rabbi Yossi actually, that says that a kai is a suffix chaya and suffix behemah, so therefore it's possible that it's not a chaya, not a behemah, and it's possible that it's both, and so on. So therefore there's a suffix that each one of them may be right. And therefore, even according to Beis Hillel, he will be a suffix Nazir, and that's following the opinion of Rab Shimon that was quoted before a few times already. Rab Shimon says a suffix Nazir, you have to be machmir to behave with the Naziris and then accept upon yourself a Naziris of Nedava in order to be able to bring your Karbanis. So therefore this Mishnah can go both according to Beis Shammai and according to Beis Hillel. Zok the Gemara. So now, as I explained, the Mishnah, it's speaking about 9 different people and each one said something else. But now the Gemara brings in a Braise that there are 2 versions how this Mishnah is explained. Tani Chade, in one Braise we learned Tisha Nazirim, that it's 9 Nazirim, 9 different people, and each one is accepting upon himself a Naziris with saying something else, believing something else. But then another Braise it says Teisha Naziriyos, that are 10 Naziriyos, 10 times of Naziros that are chal, that take effect on the same person. It's all one person that said all these things and he will become a Nazir 9 times. So the Gemara asks, it's understood according to the opinion that interprets the Mishnah that there are 9 different people. So Kagain to have a Gavri Tvei, there are many people here, the Itvis v'Azal, and each one is connecting or associating his Naziris with something else. The Azal Bein is associating his Naziris with something else, and therefore you have 9 people that will be a Nazir, as we learned in the Mishnah. But to say that there's only one person here, and he's saying all of this himself, if it's like this, if it's like that, so then how do you have 9 different people that will be a Nazir here? How could that be 9 people? It's understood the first 6 things that said in our Mishnah, where the person said whether this koi is a chaya or not a chaya, a behema, not a behema, or both, or none. So that's understood, mishkachas law, that's understood keditnan, like it said it in the Mishnah. Avol class, but the last 3 cases in the Mishnah, what were the last 3 cases in the Mishnah? That a person comes along and says that if what you said is right, or if what you said is right, then I'll be a Nazir. So then, how could this be if the person himself, he's himself the one that said that I'll be a Nazir if the Kai is a Chaya, and I'll be a Nazir if it's a Behemah. And then what is he saying? Then he's saying, if I'm right like this, or if I'm right like that. That's not what it says in the Mishnah. It's only one person that's here, and he himself said all of this. So how could you include the last 3 cases where he's saying if someone else said something and he's right, that those cases are also going to be on this one person that he's going to be a Nazir? So we really only have 6 ways of him being a Nazir, not 9. Rav Shesh's answers, Kagain, the case here is, this person said, Hareini Nazir Naziris Akayl Alai. That there were these 9 different people that said all these different things that the Mishnah mentions. Then a 10th person comes along and says, I'll be a Nazir, and which Naziris do I accept upon himself? The Naziris of all these people I accept upon me. So therefore there's one person here that he will become a Nazir 9 times. That's what the Braisa meant when it explained the Mishnah this way. That's one pshat over here in this answer of Rav Sheshes. There are various different pshatim, but this is the most accepted pshat in what Rav Sheshes' answer is. Hadran Allah Beis Shammai. This is the conclusion of the 5th Perek of Masechta Nazir. So we begin now, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, the 6th Perek of Masechta Nazir. So until here in the Masechta, we learned about a person accepting the Siddur upon himself, all different kinds of halachas of how you accept an Siddur upon yourself. Here, this Perek finally begins discussing the actual halachas that apply when a person is a Nazir. Sagt Heilige Mishneh, Shloisha Minin Asurim Ben Nazir. There are 3 different types of prohibitions for a person that's a Nazir. Hatome, he may not become Tomei to a maze, Vahateglachas, he may not cut his hair, and Vahayetzim and a gefen. And what comes out of a vineyard or of a vine, he may not eat from it. Okay, so now the Mishnah here will specifically elaborate on the 3rd detail of Hayetzim and a gefen, what comes out of a grapevine. Now, regarding this, that what comes out of the grapevine, you're not allowed to eat. So anything that comes out of the grapevine, there are various different things which will soon be enumerated in the Mishnah. Mitztarfin zeh im zeh. You could combine different parts of the grapevine together to make up the minimum amount, which is a kazayis, is what the Mishnah will say here, to be chayiv malchus for eating this. Ve'en chayiv, and as the Mishnah now says, you're not going to be chayiv malchus until you eat from this grapevine the amount of a kazayis. And as the Mishnah said, you can combine various different parts of the grapevine to make up that amount of a kazayis. Okay, so this is what the Mishnah tells us right now, that the minimum amount is a kazayis. However, now the Mishnah says that is the conclusion, the actual halacha, or what's called Mishnah Achreina, that the Mishnah just told us. But Mishnah Rishaina, there was an earlier teaching that the Mishnah originally taught as follows. In Meres it said, that the amount to be chayev for Naziris is a revius. Not a kazayis, but rather a revius. Now, usually kazayis we relate to when you eat food, and revius is used as a measurement when you drink anything. And over here, drinking wine. But according to most Rishonim, the argument between the Mishnah Achreina that we just read before and this Mishnah Rishoina is that according to the Mishnah Achreina, the kazayis is not only for eating, but even for drinking liquids, it's also a kazayis. And the way you measure that is, you have a cup of liquids. If you place a kazayis in that cup, whatever amount of liquid gets displaced by placing that kazayis in the cup, that's your kazayis. And according to the Mishnah Rishonim that says that the shear is a revius, that shear of a revius will be both for liquids and for solids as well, if you're drinking wine or eating grapes as well. Rabbi Akiva says, and Rabbi Akiva is really the opinion that the Mishnah said before, that the shear is a kazayis. And Rabbi Akiva says, Afil shara pitoy b'yayin, even if he soaked a piece of bread in wine, v'yashba kedei letzarav kazayis, and now if you combine the wine together with the bread, so you have a shear of a kazayis, chayiv, he'll be chayiv for this malchus. So Rabbi Akiva, first of all, is telling us that the shear is not a revius, but rather the shear is a kazayis. But another chiddush here in the words of Rabbi Akiva is that you don't actually have to have the full shear of kazayis of the iser, of the wine, or whatever the liquid of the yayin, sheikha, or anything like that. It has to be a shear of kazayis, but it could be combined together with the bread, which is heter really. But together with the bread, if it makes up the kazayis, there's a special chiddush here that the heter and the iser will combine together, and it'll be the full amount. It combines to the shear, and it'll be chayiv for that. That's the chiddush. That's another chiddush of Rabbi Akiva here, as the Gemara will explain and prove this from a braysa. Now the Mishnah says, v'chayiv, there are various different things that come out of a grapevine. V'chayiv ala yayin b'fnei atzmai, he'll be chayiv malchus, if he drinks the right amount, if it's just wine alone. V'ala novim b'fnei atzman, grapes alone. V'ala chartzanim b'fnei atzman, eating chartzanim alone. V'ala zogim b'fnei atzman, and eating zogim alone. Now chartzanim and zogim are the seeds and the skins, but as we'll see in a moment in the Mishnah, there's an argument which one is what. Okay, but the point here is, the main chiddush of what the Tanakami right now here in the Mishnah is saying is that the chartzanim and the zogim, you chayiv for each one, eating them separately. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says that by chartzanim and zogim, you're not chayiv eating them separately. Ein chayiv at sheyochal, he's not going to be chayiv unless he eats shnei chartzanim v'zog. Only if he eats 2 chartzanim and a zog. Then it'll be chayiv, which will be learned later from a pasuk. The way the pasuk writes this, it's understood that it has to be 2 chartzanim and a zog. Elohein chartzanim ve'elohein zogim. So the following, this is the meaning of what chartzanim is, and this is what zogim is. Chartzanim elu hachatzanim. Chartzanim is the external of the grape. In other words, the skins of the grape. Hazogim elu apnimim. The zogim is the seeds, the grape seeds. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's how Rabbi Yehuda translates them. Rabbi Yossi says the opposite. Shaloi titeh, so you shouldn't make a mistake, so you'll remember it as follows. Kizug shobehema, like a bell that an animal carries on it. Hachitzain, the external of the bell is called zug. V'hapnimi, the clapper that's inside the bell, is called inbel. So that's not called zug. So therefore over here, the zug refers to the skins, and the chartzanim refers to the seeds that are inside. Okay, so that's the machlokes, what chartzanim and what zogim are. Okay, so the Gemara here will go back to what it said in the beginning of the Mishnah, hayoytze min hagefen. You have what comes out of the grapevine, and that's what a Nazir is not allowed to eat. So it said in the Mishnah, shloisha minin asurim ben Nazir atum mechulu, the continuation of the Mishnah, and then it said hayoytze min hagefen. So from this we understand hayoytze min hagefen in what comes out of the grapevine, that is going to be forbidden to eat. But gefen atzmai, the actual grapevine itself, loy, is not included in the iser. So in other words, if there are leaves or shoots that come out of the grapevine that could be edible, they're not going to be asked to eat. Masnise in the loy Rabbi Elazar. So our Mishnah is not following Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Tanya, because in the Braisa we learned, Rabbi Elazar says, afila alin v'lulavin, even the leaves and the lulavin, the shoots, b'mashma, is included as well. That's also going to be yasser. Okay, so our Mishnah argues with Rabbi Elazar. Now, Ikeda Amri La Aseife. There's another version that proved that our Mishnah argues with Rabbi Elazar, not from the Reisha of the Mishnah, but from the Seif of the Mishnah. What does it say in the Mishnah, in the Seif of the Mishnah? That he won't be chayiv unless he eats from the grapes of kazayas. So from this I understand, minahanovim in only if he eats from the grapes that come out of the grapevine, but ma'gefanatz meloi, but from the actual grapevine itself, not. Right, so the Rishonim here explain that according to the Ikeda Amri, this could only be proven from the Seifa and not from the Reisha. Because even though the Reisha uses the term Yotzim and Agefen, but the Ikeda Amri says that the leaves and the shoots that come out of the grapevine are also considered to be Yotzim min Agefen. So therefore that could still be like Rabbi Lazar. But the Sefer where it says clearly Anavim, so from that we know that the shoots and the leaves are not included. So again, the Gemara concludes and says that Masnis in the Loik Rabbi Lazar, the Tanya Rabbi Lazar Oime, Afila Alam V'Lulavim B'Mashma. Rabbi Lazar says that even the leaves and the shoots in the grapevine are included in the Isser of the Nazir. So what's the argument here between our Mishnah and Rabbi Lazar, whether the leaves or the shoots are included or not? So the Gemara, Rabbi Lazar, Dorish Ribui Miyuti. Rabbi Lazar, the way he darshans the Torah, that you have a Ribui, the Torah writes a more inclusive term, and therefore it adds everything, it includes everything, and then you have Miyuti, then you have something which comes to exclude. That's the way he darshans the Torah. The point over here is, when the Torah writes a Ribui and a Miyut, the Miyut is not coming to explain the Ribui. The Ribui is a Ribui, it's marba everything. The Miyut will end up only being marba, or being memayit, that is, excluding something very specific. That's the concept of Ribui Miyuti. Rabbanan Darshi Klali Uprati. However, the Rabbanan darshan differently. The Rabbanan understand when the Torah writes something in a general term, and then it writes it in something more specific, so then the Prat is really just coming to elaborate and explain the klal. So therefore, after it writes the Prat, you understand that the whole klal will only include what the Prat has. That's the concept of klal of Prat, as opposed to Ribu and Miyut, where the Ribu is marba everything, and the Miyut is just a Miyut of something specific. So now how does that apply back over here to this Isser of eating from what comes out of the grapevine? What does it say in the Torah? So the Gemara explains. Rabbi Lazar, the Darish Ribui Miyuti. So what does the Torah write? First the Torah says, Miyayin v'sheicha yazir miyit. Torah writes that you should not drink, that is, wine or older wine. So this is something very specific, only wine and old wine. So that's miyit, that's exclusive. Then the pasuk continues and says, "Mikola sheyasim b'gefen hayayin." Whatever you can make from the grapevine. So riba, here the Torah is adding much more. So the order here actually is that at first it says the miyut and then it says the ribui, but nevertheless we darshan this as follows: that what do we learn out from here? Miyut v'riba, the Torah is excluding, but the Torah is also including everything by writing Mikola sheyasim b'gefen hayayin. So riba akol, the ribui includes everything. So my riba kol mili. So that includes anything that comes out of the grapevine, and therefore that will include even the shoots and the leaves as well. My miyut. So then there is though a miyut here. It has to exclude something, and as I said, according to this approach, we exclude something very specific. Miyut shabishsa. What we exclude is the actual branches of the grapevine, which are not even edible at all. That's what we exclude. That's the way that Rabbi Lazar darshans this pasuk. Now the truth is, the next pasuk, right after this, it says, Kol yemei nizra mikol sheyasem b'gefen hayayin mechatzanim v'adzog yoichal. So the very next pasuk there's another miyut there. So the Gemara only brings up the riba umiyut in this pasuk. It doesn't bring up the miyut of the next pasuk. And the reason is because that pasuk, the next pasuk, according to Rabbi Lazar, is being darshaned for something completely different. It's being darshaned for, as we'll see, according to what we learned in the Mishnah. So therefore the Gemara doesn't bring that up according to Rabbi Lazar's opinion. Now v'Rabbanon, how do the Rabbanon learn this pasuk? V'Rabbanon darshi klali uprati. They darshan the pasuk in the way of a klal and a prat. So now yayin v'sheicha yazir prat. When the Torah writes yayin and sheicha, so that's very exclusive, only wine and old wine. Mikola sheyasim b'gefen hayayin klal. Then the Torah writes anything that comes from the grapevine, that's a klal. So what do I have over here? Now, here the Gemara does bring up the next pasuk, because according to the Rabbanon, the next pasuk is not used for any other drasha. So now then the next pasuk it says michartzanim va'adzog, that the grape seeds and the grape skins you should not eat. Chazaru parat. Again, the Torah is being very specific. So now what do we have? A prat, uklal, uprat. So we have here beginning with a prat, then a klal, then another prat. This is very similar to what you usually have. Usually, when the Gemara darshan something like this in Psukim, it comes out, usually it's a klal, prat, a klal. But over here, the way the Gemara darshans is, it's sort of the opposite. Prat, klal, uprat. Which is very similar to a klal, prat, a klal. There's a small difference which will come up later in the sugya. So now, what do we learn out from this? So now we say that whatever we're including from the klal has to be similar to the prat. As I said, according to this mandama, the prat is explaining the klal. If it would be only the prat, then I would say that it's specifically what the prat is. But when it's a prat, klal, uprat, then I say that it has to be at least similar to what the prat is. Now, ma prat, what does it mean similar to the prat? The prat is mufurish, so it's clear that the prat that the Torah speaks about is pri, it's a fruit, it's a grape. Upsailis pri, or the waste of the grape. Afkal, so too, any issa that we're going to include over here, it'll only be pri if it's the grape, or upsailis pri. The psailis, the waste of the grape, which the Gemara will soon spell out what this means. What is the grape? What's the waste of the grape? We'll see. But now the Braisa here continues and says, if it has to be similar to the prat, maybe we should restrict it even more. Maybe it should be even more exclusive. Why are we saying only this, that it has to be a pri or psailis pri? Maybe it has to be something more specific, and that is ima prat mufurish pri gomor, just like the prat. What is the prat? It's a pri gomor, it's a finished, ready, ripe grape. Afkal pri gomor. Maybe I should say that the issa of a Nazir is only if he's eating or drinking from a grape which is fully ready and ripe. Maybe that's what the prat is. So the Braisa says, no, that can't be. So Omrit, you'll say, then the prat klal prat, Torah writing it in this way is not adding anything more. So imkain, if that would be the case, what did the pasuk not write already clearly that you're learning out more over here from this drasha? It says in the pasuk, Anochim lachem v'yeveshim. Are you going to say that it's telling me that moist or dry grapes are included, or like raisins? Haksivi, it says that in the pasuk. That's the lashon of the pasuk there. Yayin v'chaymitz, whether it's wine or vinegar, haksivi, it says that in the pasuk too. So therefore, if you're going to say that we're not being marbe anything more than a fully ready and ripe grape, so then I'm not being marbe anything. So therefore you cannot learn out from this drasha like we just suggested now. We have to learn out like we said before, that even a unripe grape, which is usually called in the lashon of the Gemara smader, a grape that's not ripe, that's the grape that it's coming to be marber with this prat to klal prat, because it's a peri. It's not a gemar peri, but it's a peri, psailis peri, and therefore that's included. Now the Braisa continues and says, the assumption at this point of the Braisa is, the assumption of the Braisa at this point is that a prat or klal would be the same as a prat or klal or prat. Same thing. If I have a prat or klal, I will also say that a marbe in the klal ke'en a prat. So at this point the Braisa is thinking there's really no reason to have a prat and then a klal and then another prat again. So the Braisa will clarify that right over here. Sagt the Braisa azay. Now, if in the end we have the prat and the klal and the prat, and therefore we're marbe anything that's similar to the prat, so why do I have to have this second time, another prat, when it says chatzanim and zog, to come and teach you that kol mokim shatamoitze prat klal? One second. That you stop right over there. Sorry. So what the Braisa is asking is, wouldn't it be enough to have a prat and then a klal? And I would say that what's included in the klal is what's ke'en prat, what's similar to the prat, without adding a second prat afterwards. Why do I have to have a second prat again? So the Braisa answers, no, it doesn't work that way. Because if you would only have a prat and then a klal, the klal would be marbe everything. What this teaches you is, if the Torah first writes a prat, and then the Torah writes a klal, so then after the Torah writes a klal, I don't draw the prat into the klal to say that the klal is still limited to the prat that preceded it. Elo, what happens is, nasa klal, moisef ala prat. Then the prat is a prat, but if the Torah wrote the klal afterwards, the klal comes to add everything. So the prat does not affect the klal at all. Unless the Torah, after it wrote the klal, writes again the prat, then I know that the klal is only ke'en prat, as the Braisa darshaned. Okay, this is the conclusion of the Braisa. So the Gemara will explain the Braisa. We'll do only one part for today to understand this Braisa. So Omar, it said in the Braisa, Ma prat mefurish pri upsailis pri, that in the detail that was mentioned in the pasuk. So it's a pri, it's a grape, or it's the psailis of the pri, it's the waste of the grape. Af kol pri psailis pri, so that includes any pri or psailis pri as well, is going to be also for the Nazir. So now pri, What does the Braisa mean? The Gemara explains. What is the pri that it's referring to? Invi, the grapes itself. And as the Gemara before spelled out, that's whether it's ripe or even if it's not ripe. That's really the main thing that comes out from this. That's the chiddush here. Now, psailis pri. What is included in psailis pri? Maihi, what's that? Chaimitz, if it's wine, so then if the wine goes bad, it's vinegar, that's the waste of the pri. Af kol pri, Maihi, and then the Braisa says other pris as well. Oh, I spelled this out before already, but the Gemara here spells it out. What does it mean, kol pri? Which other pri are we being marbe in this? Guarki. So this refers to guarki, which is the unripe grapes. As I said before, usually in the Gemara it's also called smada. So af kol the psailes maihi. Now regarding the psailes pri, the waste of the pri itself, what is that? Because the example we brought before of psailis pri was chaimitz, which is really only psailis of wine. What's psailis of the actual fruit itself? Rav Kahana says, La suye invi dichrin. This comes to add even grapes that got wormy, so it's already psailis, that's also for the Nazir as well. Now the Gemara finishes off to explain this Braisa here, that there's a detail in this whole drasha. It's explaining why the Torah is repeating itself again, and prat, klala prat, but there's one detail in the lashon of the pasuk that I did not explain. Va'ad zog, why does the Torah have to write mechartzanim va'ad zog? Why doesn't it write chartzanim zog? What's the va'ad zog? Amaravine la asuye de bein abinayim. This comes to add bein abinayim. So the two pshatim here that Tosfos brings. One pshat Tosfos says that we know that it says chatzanim and zog, so that's the seeds and the grape skins. How about the pulp in between? So this is the va'ad is coming to add what's in between, the pulp as well. But Tosfos asks in that, isn't that obvious? Everybody says in the Torah, we know that anovim are aser, anovim lachem v'yeveshim. So that's the pulp of the grape. Why do I need a special pasuk for that? There's another pshat Tosfos brings, I believe in the name of Rabbeinu Tam, that it refers to those little grapes that sometimes grow between the big grapes and the sun doesn't reach it and it's not really such good grapes, that is also included in the Iser. Okay, till here for today. The Gemara will continue to explain the rest of the Braisa.